Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Guts and Grind. Thank you so much for clicking and joining us. Today, we have a great interview with Matthew Thomas. He's got a great story. But before we dive in, I'm here with Siju Koshi. Siju, say what's up to the audience.
What's up, audience?
Tell us, man, how's everything going? How's life going?
It's good, man. I can't complain. Love that we get to do these episodes, especially interviewing outside people. Again, I think week to week, it gets more and more fun, right? Like it's different experiences, different stories. It's not about us, right? So
yeah,
that's always fun. But no, everything's good all in all. Glad you guys are tuning in. But Matt has a great story. It's very interesting where his background evolves from, where it kind of lands in the real estate world, you know? So, Saj, one of your favorite things out of that interview?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And just to piggyback on what you were saying before, I really love the fact that we're bringing in different people to interview them, hear their stories and stuff. Like, we still have more stories to share, but it's kind of good to have other people's perspectives and why they came into the industry and things like that, and even how. And like, for example, with Matthew, like, it wasn't just an immediate, oh, let me dive into real estate. Like, he was a car salesman. He started his own businesses. He came from a family that had businesses. And so it's really cool to see how his mind works. And so I think you'll really enjoy this episode. So without further ado, let's jump right in.
You're listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin, making the real estate journey accessible to anyone.
Matt, welcome to the show. We really appreciate you joining us. Let's just dive right in. Matt, so give us a quick introduction about you and what you're all about.
Great. Well, I'm Matthew Thomas. I married with 3 children, married for almost 15 years. As far as my career goes, been in the automotive industry and retail sales a long time ago, and graduated with my MBA. I transitioned to the vendor side of the automotive industry and worked for a national trainer for a Fortune 250 company in the automotive space. You know, during that time, I purchased some condos to rent out in the Houston Medical Center area, inspired by the experience that I had with my dad in real estate when I was a little kid. And but when 2008 came around, there were a lot of layoffs, and I was over 20 trainers in this corporate company in a team like myself, and they laid off everyone except for me and someone else. And by the time 2011 came around, I felt like I hit my ceiling. And so I started my own company in 2012 called ProStar Business Development. We're an executive coaching firm for entrepreneurs and leadership training for corporate teams. My first client in that company was actually a lady in real estate. And she had just transitioned from being a nurse. And today she's one of the top producers in the nation in well-recognized magazines and production. So recently I teamed up with, 4 people to form a real estate fund called Prime Opportunity Fund. And we offer a diversified approach investing in asset classes such as multifamily, assisted living, storage units, mobile home parks, and RV parks, just to name a few.
That is awesome, man. I know it was a quick introduction, but I want to reiterate, like, you are a pure businessman. Like, it's in your lineage, it's in your heritage, it's a part of your legacy, because I know your dad was a businessman. I know you started your own business, but you've also had other businesses as well. I remember in the past, if you want to talk about that as well, that's fine. But I just want to get some clarification. So your professional career, you would say you started off with auto sales. That shifted into a more teaching level, like you graduated up, if you want to say that, to a teaching level. And then that was still within another person's company?
Well, it was part of a Fortune 250 company. That gave me the opportunity to travel all across the continent and to different dealerships and help them grow their companies through, sales and service and business development, e-commerce. And so that experience helped me to open up other doors in other industries as well. And first started off in real estate within my own company. And that's real estate has just been part of my business lineage, I guess,
Sure.
Throughout my career. Yeah.
When you shifted from working for that Fortune 250 company and started ProStar, was that jump scary, or was it like, hey, no, this is the only move I can make? Like what was the mindset? Where were you at mentally when you made that shift? Or was it just like, no, this is the obvious choice. I have to do this.
Yeah. So about a year and a half before I started the company, I had the idea to go ahead and leave the current company that I was in at that point. And yeah, I mean, of course, it was scary because we're about to have our first baby, a few months down the line. But I knew that I just had to make the jump. I knew that, years down the line, if I look back, I would regret not making that jump. And, I've made mistakes before. At the same time, I can still look back and not regret it. Right. And so sometimes you just have to make the jump. And even if you make mistakes, you don't have to be later on in life, look back and say, I regret it. Because I think regretting getting to that point is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make in your life, more than the other mistakes that you've made before. So,
Yeah, a couple points. I mean, like just sales alone, I'll speaking from my personal mindset on sales. I always hated sales. And, back in the day, sales was, looked upon as sleazy upon our kind of like, in the whole, like our culture and things like that. Right. But I've come to understand that sales is one of the most important things that anybody can pick up as far as a skill set goes, right? So when we're talking about what you do in daily in life, right? You're selling yourself, you're selling, whatever you're trying to get accomplished, you have to get that across to another human being, and being able to connect with them and get that skill set under your belt. I think it's huge, and it's vital, especially in real estate, right? So kudos to you to kind of transition that to a new business. So do you do this full time now? I guess ProStar is like your full time kind of backing, right, when it comes to work?
yes, for the past more than 11 years, it's been a full time for me. It's not a side gig or anything like that. Of course, I've had my, challenges in the beginning. I went door to door in the beginning, but, once you start to have positive results and build that reputation, then, it's been, I would say, at least 9 to 10 years that I've gone door to door. And so now I've built that reputation and create those business opportunities. You mentioned sales, yeah, and I understand that, a lot of people don't like sales, but here's the thing, all 8 billion people in this world, they're in sales. Everybody's trying to convince or persuade you to believe about something, that whether that's in business or at home, or even a homeless person, right? They're coming up to your car and saying, give me money for a certain reason. Everybody's selling, right? Whether they like it or not. So sales, in some cases, it's an obligation. If you have a product or solution that can benefit someone else, sales is an obligation that you have, whether you like it or not, right? And a lot of people, when it comes to sales, they feel like they need to sell the product. Well, at the end of the day, people could care less about your product or solution. What they want is the outcome, right? And they're trying to see, are you the catalyst to that outcome, right? Are you going to provide the outcome that they're looking for? And that's what we really need to be selling, the outcome that they're looking for, right? For example, let's get into cars, right? Look, you can get into any car to get from point A to point B. Or Lexus or Rolls Royce, right? So if they're only looking to get from point A to point B, Rolls Royce is probably not the vehicle that you're going to be selling, right? So, what is the outcome that they're looking for? What are the emotions they're trying to meet? What's the feeling that they want to have, right? What are their needs or their wants? You would match them up accordingly and sell them on their outcome versus just the product or the solution itself. When it comes to ProStar, we have executive coaching and leadership training. I can sell all that, but at the same time, that's not meeting their outcome, right? They're looking to get to a certain point in life and in their business. That's what I offer at the end of the day.
That's awesome. Like it's funny because like I was always into that mindset of, same as Siju, like, oh, sales, I don't know if that's my thing. But as you get older and as you're in any industry, you start realizing that it's a mindset that you have to have if you're trying to make progress in your career or in your life or whatever it might be. Even tangentially with real estate, when you were saying like producing an outcome for a person, right? I view it more like I need to set up this house to attain the tenant that I want in place, right? If I'm giving a subpar product, I can't expect a premier tenant to be moving into my house, right? And so it's kind of the same thing. Like I'm selling a product. And so if I want the best customer coming to me, I need to present the best product I can, right? And so I love what you were saying about that as far as like the comparison of a Rolls Royce or like a Toyota or whatever it might be, right?
Like, what are you looking for? It's weird because like you're kind of the customer and the agent as well, right? When you're talking about real estate, because I'm looking for customers, but at the same time, I want to pick the right customer to come to me, right? And so it's very interesting to see that. But I do want to dive a little bit more into your history in real estate. So you said that you had condos or have still, I'm not sure, but condos in the medical center. So how did you dive into that? What's that story on that?
So when I started working in the corporate environment, I had the means to be able to get into what I felt like I always had a passion about, which was real estate. I was inspired by what the experiences that I had with my parents, my dad especially, who got into real estate, rented out homes, flipped homes, and I saw the smiles that brought that this along with the money that came along with it. So and I always knew that real estate is something that is dependable. It's something that you can touch and feel. It's something that people need. People need to be able to use it and live in it to have their livelihood. So that's one of the reasons, many reasons why I got into it, because I knew it's something that would appreciate in value, monetarily of course, but in other sense as well through time. And so that's why I got into real estate myself during that time. That was in the mid to late 2000s that I got into.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So for you, it was a no-brainer. It wasn't like something you had to convince yourself in doing or anything like that. It was like, no, I saw the history, like directly with your parents. Like you saw your parents doing it and you said, hey, I see the benefit of it. So would you say that was always a part of your game plan as far as like your career moving forward? Like real estate is going to be in your portfolio some way, somehow?
Correct. And not only with my parents, but even their family in India. I mean, they're, business tycoons back in India. I mean, you name it, they're in any industry that you can name right now. And a lot of it has to do with real estate, hotels, restaurants, acreage, you name it, right? So that's something that I've heard about all my life. And, I never saw it as not something that I would be a part of as I move along in life.
That's really cool because a lot of people don't have that background, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people's families don't come from business, right? Like, I mean, it's nice to know that, you can at least be brought up in that culture and it's just passed on, and not every kid will pick it up either. We kind of talk about that on the show all the time, right? So, we all have kids, and whatever we're doing in business, it may or may not transition to our kids, right? So it's good that at least, hey, one of the kids from your dad picked up, or maybe multiple have, for the business side, and they kind of live and breathe that mindset, right? So with going back to the condo though, how did you kind of like leverage money, or did you buy it while you were working, or how did you kind of work the financing on that?
Yeah, so it was while I was working. I didn't know much at the time. And so if there was a mistake that I made in real estate, it was then, because I purchased it with zero money down. Now, can you get into real estate with zero money? Absolutely. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go about it, but there are cons with that. Okay. First of all, getting into a condo, you have your fixed expenses, such as your maintenance fees, right? And then on top of that, I got into it with zero money down, and yes, I got a discount off the asking price, but it wasn't something that was truly discounted. It was not a distressed property. So if I was to, go back and do it over again, I would make sure that, I'm getting into a property that's 15 to 20%, discounted off the market, and then put, another 20% down. So this way I'm getting into something where I have a strong equity position, where even if the market, has a downturn, I would be in a good position as far as that goes. I feel like that's a mistake that I made at that time, and so I didn't have much cash flow with that. I gained a lot of experience, so I don't regret it looking back at it. But that's definitely as far as financing goes, it's a mistake that I made at that time.
How did you get into it with zero down though? Like, I mean, was it a loan product, or was it like seller financed, or how did you? Because that's kind of hard to attain.
Back then, you're talking about pre 2008.
Oh.
Yeah. So anything went, right?
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And so, what was it? I think I got into an ARM deal.
Oh, sure.
80-20 ARM.
Yeah.
something like that where you don't have to put any money down. I got into those situations. And also there were definitely opportunities where you can get into real estate at that time with no money down, no problem.
Do you still have those condos in the portfolio,
No.
or have you kind of since sold it?
No, I let those go several years ago as far as that goes. Yeah.
Just for those that might not know what an ARM is, it's an adjustable rate mortgage. And before 2008, I'm sure everyone knows about the big crash that happened there. A lot of people got in trouble with the ARMs because you don't really realize that it could adjust to something crazy. And then you immediately become not profitable. And so, yeah, just a little piece of information so you know what an ARM is.
From what I remember, it was like a balloon payment that would be due in about 10 years. And then you would bank on refinancing, before that time and all that. But I ended up, selling those before the balloon, payment happened. So
Were you able to get any appreciation out of it? Was it before 2008, before it crashed and all that, or?
no, I definitely got some appreciation out of it. Now, if I held on to those till now, I would have got some serious appreciation, but it was time to let it go. But yeah, I did not lose value on those vehicles. I actually, increased.
So what's the current portfolio look like? I mean, do you still own like condos, single family, or you kind of just shifted completely to multifamily? I know you said you had like a project, like a crowdfunding type project going on. So is it personal?
Yeah.
Like, you have a little portfolio going still?
Yeah. So right now we formed an entity called Prime Opportunity Fund, where it's a real estate fund and or funds. And so we are focused on multifamily storage units, mobile home parks, RV parks, to name a few, right? And we feel like these are, safe assets for investors to get into because, this way their risk would be diversified. And, especially in the RV and mobile home park, asset classes, those industries are booming after what happened with COVID, especially since a lot of people are working from home and they don't want to stay stationary. They want to be able to be mobile and move around. They might want to be 1 week where the mountains are, another week by the beach, right? So and they're still able to work from home. That's what we're focusing on right now as far as building these funds.
Can I dig a little bit deeper in that? Like, so with these funds, you're the fund that's raising money amongst your circle of not friends, but your circle of influence, right? You raise those funds and you have a project in mind to attack, or do you raise the funds and then you start hunting for the project?
It's a little bit of both because deals are coming across our desk left and right on a daily basis.
Oh, nice.
And so, for every 30 to 50 deals that we look at, maybe one is something that, we would be considering to jump on, right? And so the good thing about funds is that you've heard of syndications before, right? Let's just say it's a multifamily syndication and you raise capital for that one syndication. And so all that investment goes to that one complex. Right. So now within a fund, you can have multiple syndications within a portfolio. So we can raise funds and that capital can be spread out through those different properties within that portfolio. And so that reduces the risk. It helps on our side to scale even more. And so that's why we're in, really into the fund model, at this time with Prime Opportunity Fund.
Are these packaged? So you said if somebody invests into the fund, I assume, is it constantly moving or is it constantly changing the funds and the returns and all that? Or is it kind of a fixed what they get back when they first put their money into a fund like this?
So, we raise capital. It is based on projections, but, they're, educated, projections, right? I don't want to say educated guess, but educated projections, right? Based on comps and, we have, people that do due diligence on these properties before we consider them. And so it's not ever moving, right? We would have a strategy in place and then we would, perform on it to where we can get what we preach that we wanted to get out of it.
Do you guys actually manage the assets as well? Or do you have another company that kind of manages the assets that you kind of purchase?
Yeah. So at first, what we're doing is we're actually teaming up with people that are experts in the industry. Like, for example, we have a couple of mobile home parks that we're working on, right? So what we're doing right now is teaming up with others that are experts in that industry. And so when we go out to investors, we can safely, pitch to them based on that expert's history in the mobile home park industry, right? And so right now what we're doing is partnering up with people that are experts in whether that's mobile home parks or RV parks or multifamily, et cetera.
Sure.
And that's how we have our business model set up at this point.
That's awesome. Like, so it gives you the flexibility to really team up with experts in these different fields. And you're just the money play, right? Like to say, hey, you need an injection of funds. We want this much percentage of ownership. And then the fund is funding that project, right? As far as with the experts that are doing it, right? So that's awesome. That's a brilliant path. And so you said that you started it with 3 other people. Is that correct?
4 other people.
4 other. Okay, gotcha. And so how did y'all team up? Like, how did that even work?
The opportunity just came to me. So I had invested some money into actually mobile home park training last year, at the end of last year, around September, October time. And a couple of months passed by. I didn't really tell anyone about it. And I had some coffee with a friend of mine down the street over here at Las Planas Country Club. And we were just talking, and he brought up the opportunity. Hey, I'm getting into this fund model. I wasn't too familiar with it. And he said, this is the opportunity that you have to become a fund manager. So I always considered being an investor on the other side, but
Right.
I saw this opportunity where, I can actually become a, fund manager where I can manage the assets and so on and so forth. And so that's how I really got into it. So a friend of mine actually introduced it to me, and then we got, it was me and him, and then we got 3 others involved, and that's the current team at this point.
So real quick question. So from a syndication perspective, right, there's the GPLP model, right? You have the general partners and the limited liability partners. Is that the same when it comes to a fund model? Do you guys, is the managers kind of get a certain cut, and then there's another subgroup for liability partners, or is it different?
Yeah, no, it's the same. In general, it's the same. You have GPs, right? So we would be the GPs at Prime Opportunity Fund, and the investors that are bringing in the capitals, they would be the limited partners. So here's the thing: when it comes to a fund model, the LPs, which are limited partners, GPs are general partners, the LPs would get paid out first before we do. Okay, and so that puts a lot more pressure on us to be able to perform in the best way possible. So that way, not only do the LPs actually get their returns, but then we would only get our returns after our LPs are paid out.
And
Okay.
just for the sake of clarity, general partner versus limited partner. Limited partner doesn't really have a say in where the money goes, right? It's just saying, hey, here's my investment, and please do what you will, get the interest rates back that we anticipate. General partners would be the ones that are strategy, right? Like hey, we're gonna go into this mobile home park, or we're gonna go into this 100-unit apartment complex, or whatever it might be, right? Is that, am I following correctly?
So it depends on how it's set up, right? So there are setups where, LPs doesn't have a say, and they're just, investing the money into the investment portfolio, and they're okay with that. But there are other setups where, LPs do have a voice, and they have voting rights as well, to the point of where if they feel like that the managers are not performing correctly, the LPs can, get together and vote them out. So it just depends on the actual setup of the fund as far as that goes. So that's how that works.
Interesting. Okay. So like a 30,000 altitude scope of it, you're currently in the process of building the fund, or are projects already rolling? Like, have you already funded like a phase 1 or something, or is it like baby phase right now? Like, we're just starting?
Yeah, so we're in the process of putting together some funds in the mobile home space and the RV space. We considered, multifamily. We're still considering that, but especially after, what's been happening with interest rates, you're seeing a lot of foreclosure and so on. So there's a lot of volatility there. And I'm talking about at this particular time, we are, favoring a little bit more towards mobile home parks and RV parks, because the upside, we're not talking about just 20% return. What
Mhm.
4x, 5x returns, that we're seeing in that mobile home and RV space. So it's not as, sexy as multifamily, right? When you hear about it, but the work is a lot less. And here's the thing about mobile home parks and RV parks. We only really own the land, not the structures. And so what happens is the maintenance of those structures fall on the tenants. So we just have to maintain the land at the end of the day. So that takes off a whole lot of headache compared to multifamily and other assets that are out there. And so a lot less headache, a lot more cash flow that way. So that's why you start to see and hear a lot more about, mobile home parks and RV parks today, like you heard about multifamily 10 years ago, 7 years ago.
Yeah,
So
no, I definitely agree. Like, there's a huge wave of that happening right now, and I've been doing some research on it as well. As far as, like you said, multifamily, not multifamily, storage units, RV parks. It's like when you think about a storage unit, it's a metal box on
correct.
land, and as
Yeah.
long as you keep it secure and safe, that's all you're really maintaining. There's no plumbing, there's no electrical, there's no nothing. It's just a metal box that you put your stuff in, and
Yeah.
as long as you can make sure it's secure, it's secure. And just like
Yeah.
with the mobile park, like you said, like you're just making sure that there's probably utilities like water and electricity and the land itself. Outside of that, like, what else do you really need? And like it seems like a sweet spot to get in. But I think the as an individual, the threshold is a little bit larger, right? Instead of talking about hundreds of thousands, you're talking about probably closer to a million to even get into that world, right? And so I could see the benefit of like a fund where, hey, I want to dabble in that world, but I don't have that kind of money to just do it on my own. So to be able to team up with a team like you seems very appealing.
It's a great opportunity for passive investment.
Sure.
For LPs, it's totally passive, right? Where, the responsibility is on us to team up with partners in that industry and to, bring out the returns that, that they're looking for and even beyond that. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for passive investors for sure.
Matt, are y'all focused on a certain geographical location, or are you just kind of like are you kind of looking all over the US? What's the plans on that?
We of course favor Texas because, we know that market better than the other markets. At the same time, we are entertaining, properties from other places, whether that's in Louisiana or Iowa or anywhere else, as long as the numbers make sense, geographically also where people are moving to. And, we look at the comps as well. All that has to, make sense before we really get into it. But if we had to choose, yeah, Texas would be definitely top on the list because as you can see, most people that are moving out from the East Coast and the West Coast are just, migrating to Texas. So what happens is they move to Texas, the prices go up drastically as well. So that's something that we have to be cognizant about also.
That's right. I mean, I'm definitely feeling it. I'm still personally in the single family world, and I want to dive into the multifamily and things like that. But when I analyze deals for single family, you're seeing the prices skyrocket because you're getting California money, you get a New York money that's bidding against you as well. So it's definitely a tougher market. I mean, there's still deals to be made. Like you can still make it work. But it's just you got to be more creative, right?
So talking about the fund model, the fund model is applicable to almost any business that you can think of. You hear about hedge funds, you hear about private equity, etc. I know several people that have funds in the single family home aspect as well, right? Because you can scale that a lot better than one single family home at a time and create a passive investment opportunity for others in that field.
That's a great point, Matt. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, you're very right, because that's what the stock market is too, right? Like you're talking about, if you want to be investing in tech, you can invest in all the big boys, or you can invest in just your individual stocks, right? Those are ETFs or what's on the market. So no, great point. And yeah, it sounds like you're doing awesome and like huge things, man. That's like, I mean, to start a fund is like that's major work right there, right? Even to find the right partners and kind of put the deals together. What's the next 1, 2, 3 years look like for you? I mean, or do you still plan on kind of sticking heavily real estate and still doing the business, or do you have any plans to shift any other ways?
Yeah, when it comes to real estate with Prime Opportunity Fund, in the next 1 to 3 years, we definitely want to be in the multi-million-dollar AUM, otherwise known as assets under management, providing passive opportunities, passive investment opportunities for many people. I mean, because especially when you see what's happening in the markets right now, where it's very, volatile, people are going through a roller coaster ride in that, right? And especially when we've seen inflation at all-time highs. It used to be where, you can expect a 1% inflation on a yearly basis, right? As of last year, what did we go up to? Over 8%. And now we can expect around a 5% inflation on a yearly basis. If you're just keeping your money in the bank, you are going to go poor.
Right.
Okay. This idea of saving money in the bank and just hoarding it, it's not going to work out, because even if your CD rates are, 1 or 2%, your net loss is another 3%.
Right.
As your buying power, goes down. And so what's out there? You have passive opportunities where you don't have to lift a finger, where others can actually, like us, can actually help you to increase your returns in a double digit manner, ROI. And so when these opportunities are out there, leaving your, money in the bank is really more of a risk than not putting money into something like real estate.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I've always viewed my real estate investments as a bank. Like that's, each house is a different bank where instead of keeping my money in the actual bank, I'm keeping it in that house as a bank and in the view of equity, right? The money's there. If I need it, I could tap into it, or if I don't need it, let it just continue to grow, like let it be, because you hit the nail on the head. Like inflation and the way things are going, it's like once upon a time, keeping your money in the bank was a safe thing. And I think that we were taught that. But as the winds turn, you have to adjust according to what it is, right? And so now that we are in the situation we're in, we have to figure out like what's the best way to park our money. And so like I totally agree with you. And piggybacking on what I just said, I want to talk about mindset a little bit, because you said that you went from condos, a couple of condos, to a fund. That's a big jump. And I know you had business in between and you're in business right now, but like what was the mindset from going from like, and I'm not trying to say condos are a tiny little thing, but it's very attainable as an individual as opposed to like managing a fund. So can you walk me through your mindset as far as like getting from point A to point B in that regards? Like, I mean, just shifting your mind from, I don't want to say small potatoes, because like I'm still in the single family home, and there's a lot of people that are very successful just doing single family things, but I just want to be able to like absorb how should your mind shift if you want to do bigger things.
Yeah. So first of all, what? I don't want to look back in life and regret. Right. So, sometimes, have to make the jump scared. But every time I made the jump scared, it's worked out fine. And so I have a lot of resources that I back up on. It's not just my partners, but we are part of a program where we're learning, about funds. So we have a lot of resources. We have coaches every single day that we can tap into. Even in that community, we're meeting people that are in that space that already have multi-million-dollar, even billion-dollar funds that we have access to. I can pick up the phone and talk to them, so we have a lot of resources that way. Another thing is I've learned that owning or managing let's just say 100-unit complex, 200-unit complex can be easier than taking care of a few single family homes.
Sure. That's a great point. I've been kind of on this journey as far as like surrounding myself around people that are like-minded or step ahead of me, because like once you're around that, it becomes normal, right? Like these type of conversations become normal. Like you shouldn't be scared of a multi-million-dollar project because you're around people that are doing multi-million-dollar projects, and you see it as a reality. It's not just this like far off idea that you can't really obtain, right?
Correct.
So I love it. I love what you're saying there. Sid, you had a point to share?
No, and the fear is natural, right? I mean, I tell my kids the same thing. I say, hey, listen, the fear means that you care, right? I mean, obviously, if you didn't have the fear, you wouldn't care about what you're planning on doing or what you have an ambition to do, right? But again, like you mentioned, Matt, it's about, failing fast if you do fail, right? But fail forward, right? Like, I mean, learn from the mistake and push forward, right? Because otherwise you'll never learn, right? And that's kind of why we do the podcast, because it's also, hey, we don't do all the right things, right? I mean, there's things that, hey, we kind of make mistakes on along the way. We learn from it, pick up, and then grow and be bigger, right? So great points on, I mean, it's just a matter of taking the step. I think for a lot of people, it's taking that initial step. That's usually the biggest burden, right?
100%. And again, it goes back to the whole, who are you around? Like, are the people around you taking those steps?
Yeah.
Because like for me, like I saw uncles and aunties in our community owning rental properties, and I'm all like, wow, they did it in our community. They're tangible to me. If I wanted to ask them a question, I could do it. Like they made it real. Matt, to be honest, even seeing you like doing the businesses that you've done, like you've done the shoe store and you did like ProStar and you did all that stuff. And I know Sheena's done work with you too. So I've seen like the progress, and I'm like, wow, that's so encouraging to see someone that's in our realm, like in our circle, like someone I could actually reach out to, and like seeing that kind of growth makes it real, right? And so like I feel like these type of things are super important to share the knowledge that we have. Not to say that we're the expert in anything, but maybe we're a few steps ahead of some people. And so the information that we do have, we want to be able to share that to others. And so that way it makes it real for them as well.
Yeah. And a couple points you brought up, our community. I can tell you, because I'm in the Dallas area, and once I started getting involved in the fund world, where I went to conferences and all that, I could not believe the number of Desis or Indians that are in funds, especially from the Dallas area. I'm in a WhatsApp group. I think we have about 50, capped off at 50, Desi fund managers in there, and we're talking about multi-million, billion-dollar funds that they are managing, right? That was kind of surprising for me to see. And also when I said that it's easier to manage these large apartment complexes versus single family homes, or even smaller number of units in apartments, logistically, not only mindset but logistically it's easier, because when you have, let's just say, over 100 units or 150 units, you have to have a management company involved, and so they take on the headache of all the maintenance and so on and so forth, and you don't. So really, at the end of the day, the bigger you go, the better it will be and easier it will be.
Yeah. So like as a personal note, I to force myself to not, because like I'm a DIY kind of guy. I like getting my hands dirty, doing all that kind of stuff. But that you can't scale, you can't grow if you have that mindset of like, I'll fix that toilet or I'll fix that plug or whatever. So I bought properties that I bought a property in Detroit. And I'm like, it's so far away. There's no way that I'm going to go do anything. So it forced, like you said, it forced me to get property management. It forced me to say, hey, that's what it costs to get it fixed. Okay, get it fixed. I mean, I'm not driving up there. I'm not flying up there. So I totally agree with you. Like, it forces you to do the right things to be a business and not just a side hustle type of thing. Right. And so I feel like that's the mindset you got to be in to actually make this stuff happen. So if you had to talk to the younger Matt and give him advice as far as like you're starting fresh again, what advice would you give younger Matt or someone that's listening right now that's just getting in the game, that wants to be a part of like the real estate world? Like, do you have any kind of nuggets of wisdom that you could share to say, hey, go down this path, or make sure you consider this? Like, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, let me give it to you in a general manner, and then more on the real estate specific manner, right? Sure. In a general manner, I wish I knew this formula a long time ago. I think we all know that, for example, the Jewish culture, they're known to, make a lot of money and be able to manage wealth, right? But they have a formula that they follow and that they teach, they instill their kids from as early as they can speak, 2, 3, 4 years old, right? And so what they teach is when it comes to finances, the first 10% goes to God, right? Tithing. The second 10% goes for offering. So again, God. 20% goes to, their synagogue or, anything that has to do with faith, right? Then the third 10% goes to savings. Okay, you can just think of that as a cash savings. Okay, here's the kicker. 20% goes to investments. Okay, so what does that mean? You only live off of 50%, right? And so when you see there people, maybe they're not, they're not flexing or showing off or whatever, right? That's because they were living off their 50%. But by the time this kid is going to college, they're not renting a dorm. They're owning, their own house or their own condo or whatever, right? And so that's something that I wish I knew from an early age. Now, as far as real estate goes, I would still go back to the earlier example that I gave, that if you're getting into any kind of real estate, don't go into it with these no money down opportunities or even 5% down or anything like that. The reason being is because you never know when that market is going to have a downturn, and you need to treat your real estate properties, like you said, as a bank, right? Because that capital that you've put in there, it's not going to go anywhere, right? It's stored in that property or properties. And if at all possible, you want to make sure that you're getting into a property that's 15 to 20% off the market. That could be distressed properties, right? You never know that, it could be a family that needs to move out right away, because of a job transfer. It could be a divorce. It could be something that is now causing this great looking property to be distressed and they need to let it go, right? And so when you combine that along with money down, you're going to be in a great position. Not only that, you can use the equity that you have in the property to purchase other properties as well. So your one property can be a catalyst or the bank that you need to put down payments on many other properties. That's how a lot of these multimillionaires and billionaires have made, money through real estate, is because they used People, when it comes to debt, people thinking, mixing, consumer debt with business debt.
Right.
I'm not talking about consumer debt. I'm talking about debt for business. When you have a solid plan down, they can use that debt to become wealthy and use the property, the equity that they have in their property to be able to do that. So those are things that I wish that I've done earlier, that I wish I had the training, and the knowledge earlier that I gained later on in life. But that's what I would tell the younger Matt as far as that goes.
That's gold, man. I totally agree with it, because it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, you just don't know what you don't know, right? Like when you're navigating life and, the world kind of tells you, hey, you deserve this, or, you owe it to yourself. And like, yeah, go into consumer debt. Like no one really tells you the difference between good and bad debt, until you're in it. And like, you hear about these podcasts or you hear about these people talking about it in different communities of how you should really treat things, right? And so that's why I love the sharing of it, right? Like, being able to share your experiences and stuff like that. Sid, you had a point to make?
No, you hit it all on the nail, man. It's starting off, it's a two-step process, really, right? If you can't manage your personal budget, you can't manage a business, right? So like to be able to kind of penny pinch like that and have the savings to at least make these investments, right? Nobody can invest in a fund if you don't have the money in your bank account, right? So I think it's a very much a two-step mind step that we should have, right? So we should be, saving and managing our funds properly. That way we can make these next big moves, right? So great thoughts. And man, I know a lot of people will definitely love hearing that, right? So I know we've covered a lot. I know you're working on a lot of projects. How can people connect with you? If you want, you can share, any kind of social media handles. We'll definitely put some of your contact information in the show notes. So yeah, feel free to spout off any kind of, this is a little plug for Matt.
I appreciate that. A couple of ways. One, I'm very active on LinkedIn. You can go to linkedin.com/Matthew P. Thomas, Matthew with 1 T. You can connect with me there. As far as our fund goes, Prime Opportunity Fund, you can visit Prime Op Fund, PRIMEOPPFUND.com. And you'll get more information there as well.
Cool. And we'll put that on the show notes as well to make it easier for people to reach out to you. One quick question before we let you go. What is, if you're able to share, I don't even know, but what is the threshold to get into the fund? Like, is there a minimum requirement to be able to contribute?
Yeah. So usually, and it depends on the fund, right? Usually on a larger scale, we would want accredited investors. There's guidelines on that when it comes to the, SEC. Off the top of my head, I think, the individual has to make $250,000 a year, or a combined, married couple to make $300,000 a year. And, usually we have a $100,000 minimum. But there are other ones where, like, for example, the RV parks that we're talking about, since it has a very big upside, we're lenient on those where, you don't have to be a accredited investor, and we're accepting as low as $50,000. So it really depends on the fund, itself, and how we are asking for what type of investors to be on there.
Awesome. Well, cool. Thank you for sharing. We just really appreciate the time and like sharing your story and things like that. I'm sure a lot of people, everyone that's watching, has learned a lot. And if you are still watching, thank you. Click the subscribe button, follow us, follow Matt and all of his social media outlets as well. Thank you, Matt. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one.
Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to Guts and Grind with Siju and Sajin. Be sure to tune in next time.